We continue our reading of Turn Your Eyes Upon Jesus, an invitation to spend a year with your best friend, a daily devotional by author George R. Knight. Today's reading, November 3, The Blinding Power of Failed Hope. That very day, two of them were going to a village named Emmaus, about 7 miles from Jerusalem, and talking with each other about all these things that had happened. While they were talking and discussing together, Jesus himself drew near and went with them. But their eyes were kept from recognizing him, and he said to them, "What is this conversation which you are holding with each other as you walk?" And they stood still, looking sad. Then one of them, named Cleopas, answered him, "Are you the only visitor to Jerusalem who does not know the things that have happened there in these days?" And he said to them, "What things?" And they said to him, "Concerning Jesus of Nazareth, who was a prophet mighty in deed and word before God and all the people, and how our chief priests and rulers delivered him up to be condemned to death and crucified. But we had hoped that he was the one to redeem Israel." Luke 24:13-21. Luke is perhaps the greatest storyteller in the New Testament. His portrayal of the prodigal son, Luke 15, and the praying Pharisee and tax collector, Luke 18:9-14, especially engages our minds and hearts. The story of the walk to Emmaus ranks with those other sketches. Told only by Luke, this story is not significant just because of an artistry that draws in the reader. Its importance also centers on its message, which speaks to bewildered people down to the end of time. In many ways, the confusion of the two followers of Jesus catches us by surprise. After all, his followers always recognized him during later appearances, but not in these earlier ones. Thus, the problem is not that the resurrected Jesus is unrecognizable. Rather, Luke tells us that their eyes were kept from recognizing him. I don't know exactly what that means, but I do know that yesterday I had a similar experience. I failed to notice a visiting friend in our Sabbath school class because I was expecting to see someone else. My mind had so focused on one identity that I could not place a familiar face until after my mind could sort out the pieces. Once that happened, I wondered how I could ever have been so stupid. Something like that happened on the road to Emmaus. The disciples had expected Jesus to be the political redeemer of Israel from Rome, but instead of delivering them, he had died at Roman hands. Stupefying confusion blinded their eyes. Subsequently, they couldn't even recognize Jesus when he was with them. There is encouragement for us here. Sometimes in our walk through life, we feel confused and lonely. In our lostness, we wonder where Jesus is. But often the problem is not his absence, but our lack of vision, something that only latter events in God's providence can make plain. This concludes our reading today of Turn Your Eyes Upon Jesus.